Hello everyone, how are you doing? I hope that you are doing so very well. Today I have no bookish content for you, only Disney content. I have just had a lot of really long and edit heavy videos in my queue. Things that I have had backlogged for years that I'm trying to get done and on my channel. Today I wanted to go with something a little bit easier, which is talking about some of my favorite underrated Disney movies. Specifically 5 of my favorite underrated Disney movies. I would not say these are my top 5 because I'd have to do a lot more thinking about them, but I have 5 that I've kind of compiled and been like, alright, these are 5 that I would like to talk about that I really feel like are underrated. I'm gonna get into the 5, but one thing I wanted to mention is that some of the lists that I read included The Emperor's New Groove and Tangled, which I do not think are underrated. I feel like The Emperor's New Groove gets a lot of love. I feel like it's mentioned a lot. And then Tangled is not necessarily underrated, it just gets overshadowed by Frozen because Frozen was such a big deal, but I don't feel like it's underrated, so I'm not talking about either of those movies. Talk about truly underrated Disney movies. Would also like to just state for the record, because I feel like it will come up at some point about underrated Disney movies. You know, movies that aren't Disney movies. Prince of Egypt, Anastasia, The Swan Princess, Thumbelina, those are not Disney movies. Technically, I guess we can say that Anastasia is a Disney movie now because Disney bought Fox, but it still does not count. It's not a Disney movie. I just need to get that off my chest as a Disney fan. Those aren't Disney movies, they are just cartoon musicals. First up is The Great Mouse Detective. This movie is never talked about, and I loved it so much growing up. It came out in 1986, and then I'm not sure when I first watched it, but it was definitely in my childhood. It's basically Sherlock Holmes with animals and songs. What more could you want? It's also slightly terrifying in the way that some of the 80s and 90s Disney movies were, like Rescuers Down Under. That freaking lizard thing is so scary. It's terrifying. The Sherlock Holmes character is named Basil, and he actually lives at 221 Baker Street. There's actually a scene in the movie where it like pans down, you see Sherlock playing his violin in the window, and then it like goes down, and that's where Basil lives. There's this huge mystery of this girl's dad who goes missing. That's also how he meets his John Watson, because he finds the girl and brings her to him. It has a lot of the same beats as Sherlock Holmes stories, and it's just so wonderful. The music is not necessarily the best, but the actual plot and the fact that it's just Sherlock Holmes with animals was one of the reasons that I loved it as a child, and why I still love it. Even though I haven't watched it in a couple years, it still holds such a special place in my heart. How can you not love it? Next up is Bolt. I've talked about this movie briefly on my channel in an interview that I did with Morgan Matson, where we both agreed that Bolt is such an underrated Disney film. Even if you don't necessarily love Bolt or even know of Bolt, it's credited with ushering in this new era of Disney movies that includes Tangled and Frozen, and it's kind of hailed as the start of that, but people don't know about it, and it's so good. It's about this dog named Bolt. He works on this TV show set that is about his adventures with Penny, but he thinks that everything is real. He's like the ultimate method actor, but they're just all lying to him. And then after one of the episodes, it leaves off on a cliffhanger, and because he doesn't save Penny that time, he ends up breaking out of his trailer to go after her and realizes that the world is not like he thinks it is. It's actually this wider, bigger world, and he just lives in this tiny fantasy part. It's really about road trips, it's about friendship, it's about unconditional love, and it's so wonderful. You have incredible characters like Mittens the cat and Rhino the hamster. Rhino the hamster is one of my all-time favorite characters. There's this part where they're going to do this secretive thing, and he literally like sings his own theme music, and then they orchestrated it. It's just so funny to me. John Travolta plays Bolt and Miley Cyrus plays Penny. It's so weird and strange, and it just works. It's a great movie. You should watch it. Next up is Brother Bear. I saw Brother Bear in high school. I remember seeing it with my cheer squad. None of them cried. None of them cared. I was crying so hard. Brother Bear does feature a lot of Native Americans and Native American symbolism, so I cannot really speak to whether that is accurate, whether the representation is good. I tried to look up a lot of articles. I spent a lot of time and I couldn't really find anything, so if you have any thoughts or know of any articles, please let me know down below and I will link them in my description. But aside from that portion of it, I want to talk about more of the story and the heart behind this movie and the reason why I love that portion of it. Brother Bear is about these 3 brothers, mostly Kenai, and they're about to have this big huge celebration. A bear breaks into their food store, so they go after it, and that bear ends up killing one of the brothers. Kenai gets extremely angry about this and decides to go after after the bear to kill it, and whenever he does, he is actually turned into a bear as a walk a mile in their shoes kind of thing, to see a different perspective and to show him why his actions were wrong. Along the way, he meets Coda, who is a little baby bear who has lost his mom, and he takes him under his wing, and Coda also teaches him a lot about bear culture because he literally knows nothing. There's a lot more to it than that and a lot more depth, but I don't really want to spoil these movies for you if you haven't seen them, so I'm not going to go in depth, but it's really a lot about seeing other cultures and other ways of life and realizing that other ways of life, even though they are different, they are not worse or better than your way of life. They're just different. And it's just a beautiful story. The music is fabulous. Phil Collins does the music for this, and he did the music for Tarzan, and it's beautiful. Also, Tina Turner sings like the first song in this movie. It's Tina Turner, guys! And I love it so much, and I feel like it needs a lot more credit than it gets. Next up is Meet the Robinsons. Meet the Robinsons is about a kid, and at his science fair he comes in contact with this other kid, and this kid's like trying to help him, trying to guide him to do things, and he's like, who the heck are you? And he ends up going to the future and seeing what the future is like and learning a lot along the journey. Again, no spoilers, but it's amazing. This movie features one of the best redemption arcs of a villain that I have ever seen, and also Bowler Hat Guy is just in general a fantastic villain. And the whole theme of the movie is that failure isn't bad. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people need to hear, and also a lot of kids. There's a lot of pressure on kids and on people to be perfect and to never mess up, but in this movie they really celebrate failure as a step along the journey. There's one point in the movie where Lewis, the main character, is with Wilbur's family. I realize now that I didn't say their names before, but Lewis is the main character. Wilbur is the kid who finds him and whisks him away to the future. Lewis tries something and fails, and he gets really down on himself, and they literally have this whole party with like party poppers and explosions and fireworks celebrating how he failed and talking about how failure is just a step in the process. Another part of this movie is that Lewis is an orphan and he doesn't have a family, so he finds this family in the future where he can't stay because that will mess up the timeline, but it's really about finding family, and it's beautiful, and adoption is beautiful, and I love it. It's so good. You should definitely watch this movie if you haven't seen it yet. It's just so good. And last up, I want to talk about frickin' Treasure Planet, man. Part of the reason that I decided to do this video is because Monica tweeted about how Rattle the Stars was a quote from Treasure Planet before it was a quote from Throne of Glass, and I think about that all the time. I know I said this list wasn't ranked, and it isn't, except for Treasure Planet is at the top. It's always at the top of my favorite underrated Disney movies. Treasure Planet is a futuristic steampunk retelling of Treasure Island. You've got Jim, who stumbles upon this map to Treasure Planet and enlists the help of some of his friends and a crew that he does not even know to help him find this planet, and there's just a lot of complexities with that. The animation in this is gorgeous. The CG sometimes is not totally there, but there are some scenes of space that are just some of the most beautiful scenes in animation, at least from that time, that I have ever seen. Jim, whose father left him when he was very young, ends up finding a father figure, and there's a whole super heartbreaking scene talking about how Jim doesn't have a father figure, set to the song I'm Still Here, which is sung by the frontman of the Goo Goo Dolls, and it's beautiful and so sad, and I love it. The whole movie is just gorgeous and beautiful and has a wonderful cast, and one of my absolute favorite sidekicks, which is basically a blob of space goop who can turn into other things. And even if you don't watch any of the other movies that I have mentioned in this video, please just watch that one movie. It's so wonderful. Treasure Planet forever! And that's it. That's all I had to talk to you about today, was just those Disney movies. Let me know down below what your favorite underrated Disney movies are, or just any other movies you think are underrated and deserve a lot more credit. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Beautiful, amazing, fantastic.